Hey everyone, it's your girl Saung. Y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, so good to meet you. My name is Saung, and if you are not new here, thank you so much for coming back. Y'all, today I'm coming at you with honestly just like a real talk, girl talk type video, because I want to share with you about how I overcame low self-esteem. And I'm sharing this with you not really to toot my own horn, because as you'll hear from my story, it really didn't have much to do with me, okay? But more so that it might encourage you if you are struggling with self-esteem, that there is freedom from you, or excuse me, freedom for you, and that you can overcome self-esteem, low self-esteem as well. And y'all, this is actually really important to me because I feel like, especially as women, when we battle low self-esteem, it affects every part of our life. It affects the way you show up in school if you're in school. It affects the type of people that you date and the type of people that you attract and the type of people that you possibly marry. It affects the way that you show up in the workplace, right? Like, it's all interconnected. So if we have healthy self-esteem, that can help us relate to others, relate to God, relate to our world in a healthy way. But if we have low self-esteem, the opposite can happen, and it can really cheat us out of so much. And so y'all know I'm a Christian, so there are going to be parts of this video where I am talking about that, because that is a big part of how I was able to overcome low self-esteem, is through the word and some truths from it. So know that even if you're not a Christian, regardless of your belief system, you are welcome here. I want you to stick around for the rest of the video, but wanted to let y'all know, if you like, oh, she preaching, I ain't out here trying to preach, okay, but I have to testify. Testify, because that's a big part of my testimony. And so with that, y'all, if you have not subscribed already, go on and hit that young subscribe button, and I'm gonna go ahead and get right into it. And so in order to get into it, to give y'all some background, I grew up with a loving family. However, from a young age, probably starting in, I'd say, second grade, I started to battle low self-esteem. What that looked like for me is, y'all, I'm wearing makeup today, but I'm usually not. I'm not necessarily in all my videos, so you may have seen me without makeup. I have some dark, just like a dark area under my eyes. Always have, and that was something that as a kid I used to be so self-conscious about, to the point where I do wear glasses. As a kid, I would refuse to wear my glasses because I didn't want anybody to see me without them and see my dark circles, which is kind of silly because glasses are clear, right? It's not like they couldn't see them. But in my mind, I was covering them with my glasses. And so a lot of my low self-esteem had to do with appearance. Unfortunately, not that low self-esteem can't hit, other people or other races, but I do feel like a lot of young Black and brown young girls really struggle with low self-esteem connected to their appearance, because they don't see their features affirmed as beautiful. They don't see people who look like them affirmed as beautiful, right? So some of those messages and influences can lead to young Black and brown girls feeling like they're ugly, right? And so that was a big part of where it was rooted in for me. But what that looked like and how that manifested in my life is, I would pursue guys heavily. I was the aggressor. I would accept, in dating relationships and just in casual things, would accept really treatment that was so much less than what God had for me. And I received Christ at a young age, but it wasn't really until I was older that I learned how my faith, how my low self-esteem was in direct contradiction to what God wanted for me based on what he said in his word. So Anyway, I have some other videos about that if you want to hear kind of like some of my testimony on that front in terms of like dating and all that. But for the purposes of this video, I just want to like give you that background of that's kind of the main area in my life that it showed up. I was still you know, pursuing things in school and pursuing things in my professional life, but really that was the main area that I struggled with. Anyway, so with that, in terms of how I overcame it, y'all, going to college was huge for me because it was my first time being outside of where I came from, being in a new environment, being away from my parents, and really being able to explore myself in a new way. And so I wilded out. But through that wilding, I also found things about myself and found God in a way that I not necessarily that I hadn't before, but in a way that was gonna serve me in my womanhood, right? Because I was a child previously, now I'm a woman, right? I was a young woman. And so that's really where a lot of the work came from. And so in terms of how I overcame, y'all, something that is so central and was so central for me was understanding that me being unkind to myself, me thinking I was ugly, me being self-sabotaging and speaking about myself in a self-deprecating way, all those things did not honor God, right? Because God called me his. God called me fearfully and wonderfully made. God called my body a temple. Like, so when I really got serious about saying, okay, God, I want to honor you in all things, having low self-esteem and thinking about myself or speaking about myself in a negative way, that was not in alignment with what the word said about me. And the Bible talks about, I forget the exact verse, but I'll do research after this and drop it on the screen, but it talks about not to think too highly of yourself and not to think too lowly about yourself, but to think about yourself, in other words, in a healthy, leveled way. And so that was really healing for me to identify, okay, this that I'm doing, it's not that it's just not cute, it also doesn't honor God. And if I stay in this space, I'm not going to be able to walk in the things that he has for me. And so that was huge. Number two, in terms of how I overcame, is I had to reteach myself how to trust myself. And what I mean by that is, I think that you, when you're breaking promises to yourself, when you're disrespectful to yourself and to your body, right, you're teaching yourself to treat yourself in a certain way. So I had to reteach myself how to treat myself with respect and also how to hold myself accountable. And so with that, y'all, what that looked like was being super intentional about my inner self-talk. And when I had a thought that would come through of like, oh, Sandra, you know, whoop, 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 the Bible talks about taking every thought captive, I would have to be like, and I still have to do this, whoop, no, throwing that out and speak a life-giving word over myself, whether that's, you know, God approves of me, God loves me. A lot of that for me is rooted in God and rooted in what God says, because that's where my confidence and my identity is ultimately rooted. I know some people use more general affirmations. I like to make sure that mine are in alignment because that's how I know they're true. Like, I'm not just gassing myself. It's like, yo, this is what my Father thinks about me, and he happens to be the God of the universe. This is true. I can stand on this. So yeah, those are kind of like the tactics. And in terms of the process, it took years. I'd say starting in college when I really got serious to now, almost, you know, 8 years later. Yeah, it's a lot of work. There was a lot of mistakes made. I still have to maintain, you know, healthy practices to maintain that. But y'all, I just want to encourage you. It's also important, sorry, one other thing to mention, to surround yourself with women who are going to affirm you and not tear you down and kind of play into those lies that you're playing in your head. there were some friends I had to get out from around because they made me feel horrible. And it wasn't a life-giving, encouraging relationship. So if you have friendships, some people call them toxic friendships. If you have friendships like that in your life, it's not necessarily that the person or those people are doing it intentionally, but sometimes you really got to get up out of those environments so that you can hear what God is saying to you and what he says about you, and so that you can practice thinking about yourself in a more healthy way. And so y'all, I want everybody to do this work, and it's work, but it's so worth it, y'all, because you can step into healthy relationships. You can step into purpose, right? You will be confident, not in a way that is rooted in you or rooted in your appearance, but is rooted in who you are and who God says you are. So y'all, the self-esteem work, I would encourage you, if you need to go to therapy, sis, go to therapy. Ain't nothing wrong with going to therapy. We all need help. We all have things to unlearn and to relearn. And also, y'all, get up in your word. There is it's all truth, right? So much truth that you can use to speak to yourself as you're learning how to develop your self-esteem, which really goes back to seeing yourself how God sees you and really embracing that identity about who you are. I would also encourage you to read some books. There's one that I would recommend. It's called The Confident Woman. It's by Joyce Meyer. It's a really, really great resource about confidence and how that's connected to self-esteem and having that be healthy and rooted in truth. So yes, I love y'all. I hope this was encouraging to you. Keep going, my sister. We have never, arrived. I'm still going, I'm still learning, but I just want to let you know, gas you up. You are worth it. I think so. Your Heavenly Father thinks so. And do your work, sis. Do your work. And so with that, I shall leave you with this. Leave you with love. Thanks so much for being here again, and I'll see y'all next time.